Alrighty, my friends. Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day you are deciding to watch this set of videos. So, this week we are going to be diving into more of an economic sort of standpoint and looking at policies as well. So, but of course, in relation to the environment. Um, so, the first module talks about environmental economics, and then the second module kind of goes into policy a little bit. The reason we're doing two modules at once is just to kind of to get through through these ideas a bit, but they kind of go really nicely hand in hand, and so kind of decided to put them both in one. And then Nubbins over here has decided to make herself known on the on my desk. So there's that. So there's a cat in the way. It's all right. Okay. So considering environmental science environmental economics, and more specifically, it's good to first define what economics are, right? So here's a couple of definitions that I've gotten for you. Your book defines economics as the social science that deals with how scarce resources are allocated. From Wikipedia, is defined as the social science that studies the production and distribution and consumption of goods and services. And then this last definition here I like the most. It's from another environmental science textbook. But it defines economics as the study of how people use their limited resources to satisfy their unlimited wants. And so I really, really like this definition because, it has that really nice, gentle reminder, if you will, that resources are not unlimited. I feel like we often will go on and on and on, or consume, kind of forgetting that, listen, we're not always going to have that resource. But it also, this last definition, stresses our desire to consume, right? We've really, really come a society of consumption. Not everywhere in the world, right? And not everybody, right? But it's kind of thrown in our faces all the time. If you go on Instagram or, you buy from one company, you get endless emails of like, buy this, buy this, buy this. Like it's constant, buy. And so I think that needs to be vocalized more. But it's really also more than money, right? It's as many resources and services we depend on come from some aspect of the environment. The clothes you're wearing, if you're wearing a cotton shirt that had to be farmed, the food you eat has to come from somewhere in the environment, whether or not you're vegetarian, vegan, carnivore, like all aspects of food have some source of environmental impact. And then, of course, plastics and all that kind of stuff as well. So it's kind of wild, and entirely dependent on the environment. So the United States system in particular is considered a mixed economy, right? So both the market system and the government both play a role here in directing the economy. We're not really a totally free market system per se, but our prices are theoretically determined by supply and demand. So, of course, in theory, the market will determine how much of an item is produced as well as how expensive that item is. Of course, the problem here is it only works properly if all costs are included within the market price. And a lot of items are not really included, or don't have everything included in the market price. And so, this allows us to provide social safety nets to help with unemployment, right? In terms of the role that the government plays. I feel like we all kind of lived through this the past 4 years. Happy 4-year COVID-versary, by the way, if you're watching this in spring of 2024. We depended on the government to help supply us with, those stipends and the PPEs, the PPP loans. And so, they kind of help aid in that, or they make it sound like they do. But also just including all of the costs in the market. You really have to like think of every single little aspect that will cost money. Things like labor, time, how long does it take to make an item, the cost of the transport of all the different types of transports. I think I've mentioned this in previous videos, but if you think of like, if you look on the back of your shirt or your pants or whatever, if you did not buy it from a US made store, then you probably got it from somewhere else. Like a lot of my clothes are made, I think, in Indonesia, or maybe made in China, right? So that has a whole Pacific Ocean to transit over on its way here stateside. And then, of course, competing businesses can make similar products for cheaper, which would then, of course, add to the supply. And then add like just different components, right? There's huge competition here. And so some people may try to sell something at a much cheaper, of course, a much cheaper price. Then you'll probably buy the cheaper one, right? If you don't have the means, then you'll probably consume the cheaper product, which in turn, because it's a cheaper product, it may not even last for as long or be as high a quality. So these are all really kind of interesting aspects of our economy. So one limitation of mainstream economics is that it does not take into account all costs, as I mentioned before, and many external costs are not included. So the market price is really artificially already pretty low. So we're going to dive into this idea a bit of, the internal v external. So this is a picture from your book. So I want you to take a little bit to really study it, like maybe pause the video, or look through it in the book, and really try to understand every single little aspect here. So examples of internal costs include manufacturing, labor, taxes, utilities, insurance, and rent. Those are all accounted for when a product or service is evaluated for pricing, whereas external costs are ones that are not taken into account when a price is assigned to a product. And your book has now gone into a previous edition of this book. It didn't have the negative external costs in front of it. Now it does say it just said external costs. But these things include water pollution, deforestation, soil erosion, air pollution, health problems, all these things when you're trying to create paper in this particular example. And all the internal costs of that, we can be like, you have your building, you have the electricity that you probably have machines, you have people that are watching the machines, equipment, etc. Maintenance on that equipment as well is really important so that you're making things efficiently. Another example that I would use for this internal and external cost, if anyone of you all are in the service industry, like in restaurants or bars or whatever, people often complain about pricing at restaurants and why, a burger costs $20. I don't think that the people who don't work in the industry don't think about how much actually goes into pricing out food. Because again, you're thinking about labor, rent, utilities, which are very expensive, and things in restaurants and bars are constantly breaking. And you have to keep the maintenance. It's a whole thing. I've been in the service industry for a very, very long time, and so I'm very privy to it. So it's always really interesting, poking around social media or Reddit and the backlash that some restaurants will get for being so expensive. Well, it costs a lot. So diving in a little bit further to this idea of external costs, there's something called externalities. So these are the harmful side effects or costs of the production of consumption of a product that are borne or paid by people not directly involved in the market exchange for that product. So this is paid by those not involved within the transaction at all. Oftentimes you'll hear this called hidden costs or cost shifting, which is something that's good in the business world, but not so much in human environment world. So failure to include these costs is a flaw of the free market system. If all the costs are not included in the price, then the product will be underpriced, overproduced, and overconsumed. And then a failure to consider external costs in the pricing of goods, is often considered one of the root causes to the world's pollution, right? And the costs of pollution are staggering, right? You think about all of the ways that we're like changing land use. If you eat beef, then you have the consequence, if you will, or the external cost of providing methane to the atmosphere because of cow burps, not farts, cow burps. A common misconception there. Or even, changing land to go from one type of farm to another type of farm, or like regenerative farming, things like that is really quite fascinating. Or air and water pollution. I mean, even here in the Bay Area, right? If you drive around a bunch, you can see the pollution in the air from people having to get from one place to another. So transport. So consider thinking of other examples, perhaps that you see in your everyday life, or consider thinking about your own industry, right? So it would maybe behoove you to create a list of various internal costs or external costs, and excuse me, see how this would work, right? So I really want you to try to connect it with yourself, some aspect of you, and I'm not necessarily doing this to like make you feel bad or like I'm not trying to get you to do this to make you feel bad about your industry or whatever. But it's just something to consider, right? Like every single action has a reaction, right? So just being more mindful of where our things come from, where our products come from, the actual monetary cost of that. An example that just popped into my head is, how diamonds are a girl's best friend, right? So the diamond industry like really exploded there for a while. And then we learned about the external cost of like the crazy blood diamond thing that was going on. That could be an example of something that's more external that maybe you don't really think about or are not aware of. So just consider aspects of your life that could tie into these ideas. There's not part of an assignment or anything like that, but it is just something to be more mindful of. So that's a start on that. All right. Thank you so much for watching.